What if your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, or even your employer could look up the exact ballot that you filled out and figure out what candidates you voted for and what ballot initiatives that you supported? Sounds like a nightmare scenario. Sounds like a stunning breach of security. Sounds like something that would be national news. Well, guess what? It's going to be getting there really soon because we have an exclusive from Current Revolt, the Texas paper of record, a channel, by the way, that I've recommended in terms of their YouTube channel, on what is going on with this civil suit in Texas, which alleges this very thing. And by the way, even though it's alleged in the lawsuit as of right now, we've already seen decoded ballots from Texas politicians, and that's already led to downstream negative consequences for those politicians in what is supposed to be a secret vote. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And also in this video, I want to thank Current Revolt, the Texas paper of record, for getting this exclusive information and recommend you subscribe to him on YouTube or through his website so he can continue to do this great work. Now, right off the top, one of the things that I want to say, which is ironic because, you know, the conservatives have been railing about these particular issues when it relates to mail-in voting, is that this particular exploit does not relate to mail-in voting. It has to do with the type of machine that is incredibly common, not just in the state of Texas, but nationwide, but these are in-person voting machines. So just to get that stuff off the table immediately, we are talking about in-person voters, which is quite unfortunate because Republicans are more likely to vote in person, thus meaning your particular candidates are more likely to be exposable through this exploit. And essentially the way that this works, and I'm giving you the layman's interpretation, is that when you're given a ballot to go into one of these machines in a state like the state of Texas, there is a randomized non-sequential number that is assigned to that ballot that is supposed to make it impossible for you to identify the person and who that person is voting for. But guess what? It turns out that's not the case. It turns out these security procedures are insanely flawed, and in reality, it's actually quite easy, quite simple to look up what individuals have voted for who, and there's bound to be political consequences for this. Now, again, according to Current Revolt, one of the people that you can look up was the Texas Republican chairman, Matt Rinaldi, for his Super Tuesday vote in 2024. And despite his proclamations on Twitter publicly that he voted for Trump on Super Tuesday, his ballot actually shows that he voted for Ron DeSantis. Now look, there are a lot of people who are going to focus on the chairman of the Texas Republican Party voting in a way that he was saying that he wasn't voting publicly, betraying the evil orange man and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, that is totally irrelevant. Trump overwhelmingly won the state of Texas. This guy not wanting to vote for him for whatever reason, you might not like that personally, you might not like that he lies in public, but the fact of the matter is, you can now look this up, and people have apparently done this with Greg Abbott and other politicians that vote in person, and this potentially means that millions of Texans' voter data, millions of who they voted for and in what election, could be revealed to the public, which is an absolute disaster, again, especially when we live in the era of political retaliation. Also, it's a disaster, again, when you realize that Republicans are encouraged way more disproportionately to vote in person on election day, and that is the more vulnerable process here. Now, by the way, even though it's not in this article, it is important to understand that the Republican chairman denied this after this article was published, although he didn't comment before this article was published. But this information was obtained through a lawsuit led by Dr. Laura Presley against the Secretary of State of Texas, Jane Nelson, which alleges a willful and systemic disregard for election laws has led to secrecy of potentially millions of Texas ballots being breached. The suit alleges that the overwhelming majority of ballots cast in Texas elections can likely be traced and linked to the individual who cast them using publicly available information, and that this breach of a ballot is accomplished by following the process of data mining detailed in Presley v. Nelson. This means that your ballot choices from previous elections are not confidential, and unless current law is enforced by Greg Abbott, your ballot choices in future elections will not be confidential either. There is a full copy of the suit that you guys can check out. I will also link that in the description. Now look, while I think that this complaint is absolutely devastating, it is important to understand that as of right now, it is just a complaint. On top of that, there may be either expertise or bias, depending on how you want to look at it, in the filing of this complaint. So let's just review that so you are fully informed before you can make your decision. So Dr. Laura Presley, who is representing herself in this case, worked in the semiconductor industry before starting True Texas Elections LLC, an election security consulting firm. Now, the reason I think this is absolutely crucial is twofold. One, if you start a secure elections consulting firm, then maybe you have the expertise to suss out problems in these particular systems. And by the way, this is not the first person to call out the different various problems in our voting systems, our in-person voting systems. As I've talked about before, this has gone on for years in this country, but to be clear, she is a consultant for a security firm filing a lawsuit that would drum up more interest in election security. So I have to give you that caveat so you can understand there may be potential bias in that direction, not expertise, so you can make your decisions going forward. Now, supposedly the fatal flaw with this specific breach is an alleged to be random number assigned to each ballot. The random number, along with the method by which they are assigned, are specific to each brand of machine. Now, this is already an issue because if you allow the different counties to pick their own machines, then that means they're only going to have numbers that correspond with those particular voting machines. Therefore, you can at least tell just from a ballot what area or even what precinct somebody voted in. So already the number could be enough to narrow it down to something that close, but it actually gets even more weird. So the plaintiffs say that they can actually reverse engineer public data to produce the official ballots for most Texans who voted in person. Apparently, this exploit does not work with mail-in votes, as I talked about before, but the ballots of the following politicians were produced as examples in this lawsuit. So apparently they did the plaintiff's ballots, which are Robert Bagwell and Teresa Soul, and they also did Williamson County elected official ballots, including the county attorney, the county district attorney, the sheriff, the county judge, the district judge again, and 3 county commissioners from precincts 1, 2, and 3. Now, depending on the county, through this method, about 85 and sometimes even as high as 90% of the ballots are reverse engineerable in order to detect who people voted for. And again, it generates you a legitimate image of that ballot, which allows you to understand who was voting for who, which is an absolute disaster because again, a secret ballot is part of how our system of government works. Now, Current Revolt also links to a PDF that explains this in great detail. I will be also linking that PDF for you guys out there in the audience so you can go through this as well. So there's going to be sourcing in the description of this video, but the overall premise is that this is not really some kind of complicated exploit or anything like that. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, and more people are going to figure this out, so more and more people are going to reverse engineer the ballots of Texas voters, and unfortunately, some of these same brand machines exist in other states, so presumably, this could be a way to expose people nationwide.
Understand this, as I know you know, and that is, I've been very aggressive in making sure that our elections have high integrity. Formerly, I was the Attorney General in the state of Texas, and as of that time, I brought more legal actions about illegal voting in the state of Texas than any other Attorney General before. I know that cheating does occur. It must stop. We must have valid elections in the state of Texas, and we will continue prosecuting voter fraud whenever and wherever it occurs. Now, that said, we also need to make sure that our rolls, our voter registration rolls are valid. Understand this. Listen, there are people on the voter registration rolls who pass away every year. There are people who move out of the state every year. And it's a fact that there are people who are here without authority who are on the rolls. We need to make sure only those who are legally authorized are eligible to vote, while at the same time encouraging everybody who is eligible to vote to go vote. And I think working together on things like that, but also voter ballot box security measures like what you're talking about, All of these are needed. Listen, it's a complex process that involves a lot of moving parts, that requires a lot of people to be involved. We're very grateful for your involvement.
Now look, there's a lot of supporting information for this particular lawsuit at this moment of time. It will be linked in the description underneath this video so you can check it out. It's in PDF form. I'm also going to link the full complaint, but I will say this has not been adjudicated as of right now. So maybe, just maybe, it all seems to be made up. Now, of course, based on what was told to them by these officials and what they discovered through this lawsuit, people were able to reverse engineer other politicians' ballots, but until those politicians acknowledge the legitimacy of said ballots, in reality, we don't actually know if that was confirmed. Maybe it's just generating a totally random ballot out of nowhere, and it's no big deal, and everything is perfectly fine and secure. And again, the thing that I will emphasize is that while a lot of people will talk about the issues with mail-in voting, this is specifically with the in-person voting, and it's not an issue of the count being off or anything like that. It's an issue of the anonymity factor being stripped away by these machines that essentially we surrendered managing our elections to. So again, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me with the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a potential disaster in the state of Texas. Till next time.